Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a double shaker card using Lawn Fawn's Really High 5. So I've stamped out my images on some Nina Solar white cardstock with jet black ink from Lawn Fawn, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm starting with my fox, and for him I'm using YR12, YR14, and YR18. I'm going to have a central light source on this card, so I'm shading my critters in the direction that they're facing. So the darkest shadow is going to be down their backs, so I use the YR18 for that, and then I began to blend that out with my midtone, the YR14. And I'm also breaking him down into sections, so for right now I'm just working on his body, and I'll come back and do the tail in a little bit. So then I'm going to take my lightest shade, the YR12, and fill in all the white space, and just make sure to really scrub over the edge of that YR14 so that I get a nice transition from each of those shades and get a really nice blend. I wanted to add just a little bit of shadow on the inside of his leg, since that would probably be casting a little bit of a shadow there. So I just quickly added that, and now I'll move on to his tail. So I'm putting a nice thick shadow on the back where it's attached to his body, where his body would be casting a lot of shadow down on that area, and then blending about another third of the way up with the YR14 and finishing with the YR12. For the white areas of his body, I'm going to use YR000 and YR00. First adding a little bit of that YR00, anything place that I feel like a shadow should go, and then I'll blend out with the YR000, and I use those same shades for the little mouse's belly and the inside of his ears, and I also colored his nose with the YR00. For the rest of his body, I'll be using E51, E53, and E55, laying in the shadows now on his right side, since he'll be on the right hand side of the card, so it will be down his back as well. And then blending out with the E53, and make sure to add some of that color on his ears, and then the ear that was on the far side of his body that would be casting a little more shadow, and also the arm on that side I just colored completely with the E53 and then filled in the white space with the E51. I wanted to pick a bright and fun color palette that could really be gender neutral, so this card could be given to either a boy or a girl, so it's a great one to have in your stash. So I went with yellow and red. So for the yellow combo, I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17, and I'm going to color the gift and also every other stripe on the party hats. And then for my red combo, I'm going to use R22, R24, and R29. This combo is kind of a little bit pinky, so it kind of reminds me of like fresh watermelon, which makes it perfect for summer. So I will do the bow on the gift and then color in the opposite stripes from the party hats with these three shades. I'll use R20 to add some rosy cheeks to both of my critters so they look nice and cheerful. And then I will trim all of these images out with their coordinating dies. For my background, I'm taking a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock, and I'm using the Lawn Fawn Cloudy Stencil and blending on some tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink so I can create a cloudy background for my critters to be floating up with their balloons on. So I'm going to just continue working down that panel and turning that stencil as I go so I can get some different cloud formations. So I think I did about 4 different cloud formations on this card front. And then once I finish that up, I will also add a little bit of that tumbled glass to the bottom, just so it's not so stark white and kind of matches the fade that I have, going on for the rest of the panel. Then I'll press some of that ink onto my work surface and water that down and do a little splatter detail across the background just to give it some more interest. And once I have that all covered with some different size droplets, I wanted some larger and some smaller, I will set this panel aside to dry. Once it has completely, I will go back to my Lawn Fawn jet black ink, which is what I use to stamp my images, and I'm going to add my sentiment in the top right corner. And I did the "we really high flying by to say," and then I will complete the sentiment on the inside of the card. And for the inside, I am stamping on a aqua blue card base with some peacock ink. And I'm going to take the bear and balloon and the sentiment that says, "Happy birthday, have an uplifting day." And once I've stamped that twice to get a real good impression, I'm also going to stamp the balloon string so it's kind of going over his hand and looks like he's holding on to it. Then I will take 2 of the outside in stitch balloon stackables and arrange those on my card front so that I can die cut 2 windows into my focal panel. I'm going to hold them in place with some post-it tape and run it through my die cutting machine, and then I can remove those little pieces. And I also cut them out of some sticky note and raspberry cardstock so that my balloons can have some color. I'm going to line up that focal panel on my card front but not adhere it yet. And then I'm going to put some liquid glue down in the space where the balloon die cuts have been removed. And once I have that nice and covered with a thin layer of glue, I can insert those colored pieces of cardstock. Just double checking again to make sure it is nice and straight, so this is all going to line back up later on. Then I can fit those colored balloons into the holes just like a puzzle, press down firmly, and peel up the focal panel. I've cut down a piece of acetate to be the right size to cover both of those balloons, and I'm adding some thin strips of 1/8 of an inch tape to all 4 edges of that acetate. I figured it was easier to add it directly to the acetate rather than the back of the card so that I know I have exactly the right measurements there. So I'm just adding that and tearing it off to fit, and then I can press that down to make sure it's adhered well and peel off the release papers. And then I will adhere that to the back of my focal panel so that it completely covers both of those balloon die cutouts. I'll smooth that into place to make sure that the tape has bonded. And then I also added foam tape to the back, just creating a little well for those 2 balloons. And I'm using a powder tool to eliminate some of the stick along the edges so that the shaker material doesn't get all caught up on the tape and then not shake like it should. And I only added 1 layer of foam tape because I don't like really bulky cards, but if you wanted more shake to your shaker material, you could add a double layer of foam tape. So now I'm filling my shaker by just pouring the different elements onto my balloons. I'm going right in the center so none of that tape will get stuck on the shaker material. And I used Lawn Fawn's Prisma glitter and the chunky glitter from Lawn Fawn. And now I'm adding some tiny iridescent stars from Pretty Pink Posh. All of my shaker material is flat, so having that 1 layer of foam tape is going to be just fine. If you would use anything a little bit bulkier, you probably would need the double layer. So now I'm going to carefully line my focal panel back up with the edges of the card and make sure everything is nice and straight. And then I can press all of that foam tape down into place on the card base to firmly secure it. And then I can give all that material a shake. And because I only have that 1 layer, it did take a little bit to get some of that pile to disperse, but eventually I did get it broken up so that it was flowing nicely. So now that the double shaker window part is finished, I can decorate my card, and I die cut 2 of the balloon strings and 2 of the bows from the outside in stitch balloon stackables. And then of course I've got my little critters and accessories. So first I lined up the fox where I wanted him to go, and now I'm just making sure that that balloon string is going to cover his hand so it looks like he's holding on to it. And then I will add my glue to the back of him, and I'm going to have that string coming around to the front and wrapping over his tail. And because these were so thin, I actually ended up using my reverse tweezers to help, just because things were a little bit fiddly, and so it just helped to be able to hold that die cut and get the glue on the back without getting it all over my fingers. So I'm currently just adhering the top of the string first, and then I'll add my critter and see where I wanted the rest of the string to go. For the fox, I had it kind of overlapping him, but for the mouse, I wanted him to kind of go over top of the string, so I added him that way. And then I have the little bows as well, so I'm picking those up with my tweezers once again. And I'm using my Lawn Fawn glue tube for the adhesive to adhere these guys because it has such a thin nozzle, so it really works well for these delicate die cuts. I recently picked up a new bottle. My old bottle had gotten clogged, and then I had a little splooge accident on my work surface one day, so I didn't have this glue for a little while, but I recently placed a new order and picked one up, so I'm happy to have it again in good working order. So I added the gift to the little fox's hand, and then I'm going to give him the party hat that has the streamers coming out of the top, and then I'll use the smaller little hat for the mouse. And as a final embellishment, I felt like the background could use a bit more shimmer since we've already got so much sparkle going on. Why not? So I took a little bit of the Lawn Fawn liquid stardust and I just squirted that onto the die cut on the side there, and I'm dotting that all over the card front, just like the splatter that I did with the tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink. So I'll lift that up to the camera so you can see how pretty that is when it catches the light, and I'll give you another peek at the inside as well. And that is going to complete my card for today. I'll give it a little shake for you guys so you can see it in action. If you enjoyed today's video with this double shaker window, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Your support means the world to me. And you can also hit that notification bell if you want to be sure that my videos always end up in your feed and you don't miss any of them. If you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought might also interest you, so you can click on either one of those to check them out. And I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.